Well, greetings fellow dwarfers, welcome to Red Dwarf Nerd, I'm Dan. Today a shot-by-shot breakdown of the Series 1 episode, Me2. Now here's a great episode which really taps into the writer's interest in psychology, exploring the fun idea of would living with yourself drive you a bit mad. Now, as mentioned in last week's breakdown, during the electrician strike which delayed the start of filming of the first series, Rob Grant and Doug Naylor decided to ditch the previously written episode Body Snatcher and add this episode, Me2, instead. Previously, Body Snatcher would have been the second episode of the series, with Confidence and Paranoia being the last, but with Body Snatcher ditched, things could get reshuffled so that Me2 would close out the series. That unused script for Body Snatcher had also dealt with the theme of living with yourself, but from Lister's point of view. So, many of the ideas could be rejigged fairly easily to create Me2. By this point, the writers also knew how to write to the strengths of each actor, having had the chance to see all the previous material performed in rehearsals. This all comes together to give us one of the strongest episodes of the series, which gives us character insights, sci-fi fun, and a question pondered by fans ever since. If you had to live with yourself, would you drive yourself mad? So let's get into the breakdown. The gag this week is about the 1 after 8 mint being left. Surprisingly, considering the events at the end of the previous episode influence how this one starts, there's no update explaining what's happening. We did get an update at the start of a previous episode after Lister had pretended to pass an exam, but this time, nothing to update us, we're just straight into the episode. We then join Lister in the bunk room sorting Rimmer's stuff from his. Rimmer's stuff is all pretty boring, whereas Lister has things like the pop-up Kama Sutra, Zero Gravity Edition. While sorting things, Lister finds a video of Rimmer's death, which we'll get to see later. Now, a videotape itself may look out of date now, but as we'll find out in Back to Earth, they're the future's solution to all the lost optical discs.
Videos are just too big to lose.
Rimmer tells him just to stick the video in his trunk. Sadly, it doesn't appear that this one is the famous Camphorwood model. During the conversation, Rimmer accuses Lister of humming for 2 years, which goes against Lister saying that he'd been with the JMC for just 8 months back in Waiting for God. Rimmer implies that Lister is the reason he never got promoted. This theme of Rimmer blaming others for his shortcomings is going to get repeated a lot in this episode. Lister mentions that Rimmer played self-hypnosis tapes all through the night, including Learn Esperanto While You Sleep. In the next episode, Crichton, when we get to Season 2, we'll see Rimmer trying to learn some of that Esperanto.
Oh, this one, don't tell me.
Lister winds up with saying, "You can't blame me for your lousy life." As mentioned, having to face the fact that Rimmer wrecks his own life, is his own worst enemy, and blames others is a recurring theme in this episode. Rimmer blaming Lister for his crummy life was first seen in episode 1, The End, and we'll see it over and over again throughout the years. Even the captain's report would mention this blaming in season 12, episode 6, Skipper.
While he continues to blame everyone for his own failings.
The second version of Rimmer arrives. Now, having watched all these episodes in sequence, this seems perfectly expected. However, thinking about it, if you happen to drop in on this episode without seeing the previous one, remembering there was no update from Holly at the beginning, this might seem just a little bit weird. After talking briefly with this new Rimmer, saluting him and sending him on his way, the old Rimmer says those immortal words, "What a guy," which other people will say of Rimmer's better self from another dimension, Ace, in future episodes. But sadly for Rimsey, the only person who's ever going to say it about this emotionally flawed version is himself. Rimmer has Lister carry a priceless antique, which is a daft picture of a chimp reading a newspaper. If you were eagle-eyed back in Waiting for God, you'll have already seen this behind Rimmer in one scene. Lister arrives at Rimmer's new bunk room, which he's sharing with a duplicate of himself, who has gone to the effort of bothering to get a double nameplate put up. In the not-so-beloved remastered version, Lister examining the nameplate is cut short and the order of events is changed around, with the scene of the cat looking for a date in the drive room put in between the 2 bunk room scenes instead of afterwards. Once he enters, Dave points out the ridiculous decorations like redundant no smoking signs and newspaper cuttings about other people called Arnold. Now here's a geeky one that I found referenced on the tongue-tied Red Dwarf wiki page. For a single frame there's only one rimmer when we switch to the wide shot, with the scutter slightly jumping forwards as well. The bad frame was removed in the remastered version along with a few seconds of Lister's talk. Dave says that this joke's going to keep me laughing all through the winter. Interesting that on board ship they actually bother to reference different seasons. Kind of strange given there's no weather, no changing of things, but hey, it's nice to see they keep the seasons on ship. Dave gives a Mickey take salute and leaves, to which the dual rimmers say "Goit" in unison. In the original versions, this is now where we get the cat passing through the drive room and the captain's office with a bouquet of flowers and a megaphone looking for a date. As mentioned, this sequence was moved up to before the double rimmer bunk room scene in the remastered version, with a ship flyby used instead to link to the next scene in Dave's bunk room. We then join Lister in the bunk room enjoying the freedoms of single bachelor living, squeezing out his toothpaste, making a mess and even tipping out that famous dirty sock pile. Except they're actually so bad even Lister can't stand the stench. Lister then finds the video of Rimmer's death. He must have dropped it earlier when moving that trunk. So he decides to stick it on and enjoy it with some popcorn. We then get a fun reference to Rimmer's pointless qualifications, BSc and SSC. Rimmer's death video plays with a long intro and mentions how even Napoleon's career would have been held back if he'd had to share quarters with Lister. Arnold's final moments are then shown, with him being reprimanded by the captain in the drive room for doing sloppy work on the drive plate, before they're all killed by an explosion caused by said work. As mentioned when I broke down the first episode, The End, this whole scene is a parody of Citizen Kane's Rosebud opening, with Rimmer mysteriously saying gazpacho soup just like Kane's Rosebud.
5-9.
Gazpacho
Emergency
soup!
announcement.
In the remastered version there's a few extra sound effects and some flames were added to that nuclear wind. I've got to give a shout out to one of my subscribers, Levi, who sent me a question about this scene, and he made a really good point. Rimmer is blown into the captain's office and seems to die there. However, in the first episode, The End, Rimmer crouches over a pile of dust that he says is him, which is in the drive room, nowhere near where he seemed to die. Now I'm putting together a theory video for this one, but I'd love to know what you guys think. Has anyone else got an explanation for how he seemed to die in the captain's office, but then his ashes seem to be in the drive room? If you've got a theory on this, stick it in the comments down below. The video ends and Lister sits back wondering what the significance is of gazpacho soup. The cat then arrives, still with his megaphone and bouquet, but now on roller skates. After having toured with Starlight Express for a year, Danny John-Jules said that skates were like walking in shoes for him. The deleted scenes have an extended version of this, with Lister asking the cat to move in with him as his new roommate. It's a pretty decent scene, to be honest, well worth a quick watch, and it actually makes the cat's appearance make a bit more sense and fit more in with the plot, being more involved in the guys changing rooms and moving in and out. We then move to the double rimmer bunk room for a really iconic scene, the two rimmers exercising side by side. This was apparently a really physical scene for Chris Barry, as he had to keep doing those jumps over and over again to get in sync with the stuff that he'd already filmed. I've got to say, I think it was worth all the effort, as the scene looks brilliant, all the conversations in sync, it worked really well. During the exercises, the older version of Rimmer is a little bit lazy, while the newer version drives him on to do a little bit more exercise. After a conversation, they decide to set their alarm clock insanely early at 4:30 AM before staying up to do some more revision until 4 AM, giving them half an hour's sleep. In Infinity Welcomes Careful Drivers, this competitive revision and work schedule gets fleshed out even more, to the point that the two Rimmers are basically nearly killing themselves. After a super loud alarm call, Rimmer is seen in the corridor directly outside of Lister's bunk room, with the two scutters repainting the walls in what appears to be exactly the same colour. The remastered edition changes the sound effect of the alarm call to include screaming and gunfire. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine on the purpose of that change.
It's 4:30. Here is your early morning alarm call.
That's
4:30. Here is your early morning alarm call.
Lister arrives having not yet slept and asks about the pointless same colour repainting, to which Rimmer responds that they're two different shades of grey, ocean grey and military grey. Sounds like the basis for a badly written erotic novel. There's an idea. Lister asks Rimmer how it's going living with himself, before mentioning Yvonne Magruder, to which Rimmer replies with the somewhat vulgar, though very funny, "I gave her one" response. Lister then asks about Rimmer's last words, gazpacho soup. Rimmer dismisses the question, putting the random last words down to not having any time to think of anything better, and mentions iambic pentameter, which, yeah, okay, I had to Google. That's the rhyming sequence used in poetry, like Shakespearean poetry. Yeah, don't feel bad, I had to look it up as well. Lister then sneaks into Rimmer's room and finds his diary hidden in the A to Z of Red Dwarf. In the deleted scenes, he spent a moment examining the daft posters on Rimmer's door. Lister begins to read the diary, which starts with ridiculously high aspirations to be as well valued as Napoleon's war diaries and the memories of Julius Caesar. November the 25th is labelled as Gazpacho Soup Day, which Lister says is 6 weeks before the crew got wiped out, making the radiation leak around the second week of January. The cat emerges from Rimmer's closet, announcing that he won't find that, not until he changes his boots, which is really funny to imply that even an evolved feline sapien 3 million years in the future, sharply dressed with his own religion to follow, his own basis of culture and everything, yeah, that future version of a cat still has a tendency to crap in awful places. It's perhaps just as well that Rimmer's hologrammatic status means he's never going to need to put those boots on. It's great seeing around the room how Rimmer's got pretentious Picasso and Mondrian style modern art alongside that terrible ape picture. Back in the original bunk room, Lister is amusing himself by blowing bubbles, something Craig Charles wasn't actually able to do, hence the bubble being made out of something rather less appealing.
This is a Jordax, by the way.
Holly winds up Dave using almost the exact same story as in Dave Hollins Space Cadet Episode 2 Norweb, claiming that the Norweb Federation wants Dave for crimes against humanity. The only difference being that in Red Dwarf, it's a wind-up for April Fools, whereas in Dave Hollins Space Cadet, it's actually happening for real.
From the Norweb Federation, the Northwestern Electricity Board.
Representing the Norweb Federation.
Who's that, Hap?
The Northwestern Electricity Board.
For your crimes against humanity. Years ago, you left 2 half-eaten German sausages on a plate in your kitchen.
For your crimes against humanity, Dave.
What?
You left 2 half-eaten German sausages on a plate in your kitchen.
Thanks to compound interest, you now own 98% of all the world's wealth.
Now means you own 98% of all the world's wealth.
Dave points out that it's not actually April for an April Fool's joke, to which Holly says he could hardly wait 6 months with a joke like that, which 6 months before April would put this episode back in November. Perhaps the very reason that Dave flipped to November the 25th in Rimmer's diary is because that could be the day it is. This could be November the 25th in the year 3 million odd. So it's Gazpacho Soup Day all over again. Lister can hear an argument coming through the walls from Rimmer's room. In Rimmer's room, the two Rimmers are arguing and end up in a full-blown shouting match, which ends with the new Rimmer insulting the old about gazpacho soup. So clearly, living with himself isn't going so well for Rimmer. Dejected, the old version of Arnold comes to sleep in the old bunk room, before the new Rimmer starts having the scutters bang on the wall, resulting in the shouting match continuing in 2 different rooms. We get the gross, but brilliant, distended rectum insult, followed by one of my favourite lines: "We've had a bit of a tiff." In the cinema, an advert for an Indian restaurant is playing, voiced by Red Dwarf warm-up comedian and regular small part performer Tony Hawks. The advert is for the Titan Taj Mahal restaurant, apparently just a short walk from this cinema, so the movie and ad reel must have been taken directly from a cinema in Titan, with the JMC being too tight-fisted to bother having it edited down for use on the ship. The Cat and Dave are about to watch a movie as old Rimmer arrives, and they say they're going to watch Citizen Kane, nicely re-referencing the parody from earlier in the episode. A Mugs Murphy cartoon comes on, which is a made-up cartoon specifically for Red Dwarf. Watching this, Rimmer somehow thinks it's Citizen Kane. In various other episodes, we've seen Lister wearing a Mugs Murphy t-shirt on quite a few occasions. And in the unmade Body Snatcher script, there was a sequence of Dave trying to watch a Mugs Murphy before Rimmer eventually deleted the episode and caused the playback machine to burn out. Apparently the new Rimmer has been getting the Scutters to repaint over all the grey again, pointlessly turning it back again to ocean grey. The new Rimmer arrives and deliberately sits to block the old Rimmer's view. The old Rimmer mimics the same petty behaviour, and the new Rimmer repeats this one more time. The old Rimmer then gets up and makes rude shadow puppets on the screen, before Lister gets up and says that it's too much and one of them has got to go. The two Rimmers stand either side of Dave, seemingly with the old Rimmer on the right and the new Rimmer on the left, as it seemed like the old one must have come from the back of the cinema after having made the shadow puppets. However, it's the Rimmer on the left who says that he was here first, implying he's the older version. So it seems like something's out of sync here. If we watch the deleted scenes, there's a few more seconds of what happened before this moment, which shows the two switch places, making it the new Rimmer who did the shadow puppets, and explaining why the old Rimmer seems to be stood on the wrong side. After a bit of ippy-dippy choosing, a space version of Eeny Meeny, it's the old version that Lister chooses to delete, and we get another one of my favourite lines. I've been ippy-dippy to death. In the drive room, the newer Rimmer is gloating, hoping to watch the older one get deleted, but Lister orders him off. We again get to see the ridiculously small hologram projection unit shown in the previous episode. It's just so hard to believe something this small could produce a hologram, and that something this small would require the ship to run on low power to run a second version. I'm glad that in the second series they turn this into like an entire big room, which makes a lot more sense to me. This time the hologram projection unit has got Rimmer's name on the side of it instead of Kachansky's name like it was on the previous episode. The old Rimmer arrives in full dress uniform with multiple long service medals. Holly gives him a few shots of whiskey before Lister quizzes him about the gazpacho soup story. Rimmer tells the story like it was a long way back in his career and was one of the reasons he never progressed. Again, blaming things for his not progressing. However, he also says during the story that he'd got invited to the captain's table after just 14 years of service. In the episode Waiting for God, Lister said that Rimmer had been with the company 15 years. So the gazpacho soup incident can't have been that far back in Rimmer's career, a year at the most. Well, not including 3 million years in between. Rimmer being invited to dinner with the captain would be seen on screen in the season 8 episode Back in the Red Part 2. However, that was kind of a dream within a psychotropically induced artificial reality, and there was no cold soup either. Rimmer starts trying to blame his parents and his upbringing for his culinary knowledge shortcomings, and even gives a ridiculous sounding taunt that Todd Hunter's mother must have had gazpacho soup and champagne dispensing breasts. So even in his apparent last moments of life, after having been subjected to the misery of having to live with his pathetic self, seeing his own faults, seeing his own failings, Arnold is still blaming others for his failings. So after an episode, in fact a full series of character insights, Rimmer scenes, moments of him to grow, moments of him to interact with people and to face his own mortality, Rimmer doesn't seem to have grown at all. Having now found out the answer to the gazpacho soup mystery, Lister reveals that Rimmer won't be getting raised after all, as he's already deleted the newer version, much to Lister and the cat's delight. Lister promises not to taunt Arnold about the story, and Rimmer compliments Lister for being an honest guy who keeps his word. Right before Lister then says, super. And that's it for this episode, and indeed, that's it for Series 1, or at least that's it for the broadcast episodes, but I think I'm not quite done yet. I'm also going to do a breakdown of Body Snatcher, as I think it's really important to how the whole of the first series was formed. Plus, to be honest, I really like Body Snatcher and think it deserves a breakdown, so we can explore how it influenced the scripts of the other first series episodes. But guys, what do you think of this episode? Do you get a different feel with this one, having been written so much later than all the others, having been written after the writers had seen the guys perform the other scripts? Do you get a different feel with this one, or do you think it flows really naturally? Let me know in the comments down below, and let me know if you're looking forward to a breakdown of Body Snatcher. I think that's going to be really fun to do. I'm looking forward to it. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's been really cool going through the broadcast episodes from Series 1. I've really enjoyed it and I'm looking forward to doing more. So if you're not subscribed, I recommend that you hit that button. And if you want to know when the next episode is out, hit the bell icon as well. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this one. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Comment anything that you want to say, anything you want to ask. Just keep it civil down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, Smegheads.